Hello guys, Ancient Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco and welcome to my channel. So as for today we have finally the how to overclock and undervolt the RX 6750 XT, and I mean lots and lots of people requested it. Let me just adjust the camera a bit. We have both this video and my leather jacket. Take that, Wong.
AI.
And by the way, in case you ended up in this video but you did want another overclocking video, let's say for example for the 7800 XT, for the 7700 XT, something like that, I have lots of overclocking and undervolting videos, including even the RTX 4070, 4070 Ti. I will soon do one for the RTX 4060 as well, so just go to my video section, search for the card you want and it will appear there. And just before the actual overclocking video, let's go to the common questions. But before, let's just hear a word from our sponsor. Today's video sponsor is GVG Mall, bringing you all the software deals you need, like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2021 with a new Windows 11 design, and even Windows Server 2022. For all of these, you can use my SKG discount code for 25% off, getting a Windows 10 serial key for only $16. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. So the first common question is, can I do this on my Asus RX 6750 XT, on my MSI card, on my Sapphire card, on my ASRock, on my Gigabyte card? Yes, you can. As long as it is an RX 6750 XT, this tutorial applies. Doesn't matter your cooling solution, because we're overclocking and undervolting at the same time, meaning that the temperatures will still be under a certain level. They will be fine for, let's say, 90% of users or 99% of users, but then you can also tweak your card. So as long as it is a 6750 XT, your cooler brand does not matter. The second question is, will this void my warranty? No, this won't void your warranty. Although some brands like AMD and Nvme may say that overclocking can void your warranty, well, it is extremely hard for a brand to prove that you overclocked somehow. And even if you make videos like me and you have online saying that you overclocked the card, even though you can just send your card instead of sending it to AMD, you can simply go send it to the store where you bought it and they will accept it under the warranty terms. And the third and final question is, will this break my GPU? And now this is also related to the previous one of the warranty and so on, and I can tell you right away that no, this won't break your GPU. If you change your card's BIOS, your card's BIOS, and you alter values like amperes, like voltage and so on to reach over the default values, then you can actually break your GPU. But with the normal overclocking and undervolting on the software without any kind of modded BIOS, there is no way that you're gonna break your card. Unless, of course, you have a time bomb instead of a power supply. If you have a really bad power supply, what can happen is that the power supply, and I'm not talking about watts, I'm talking mostly about the brand of the power supply, the quality of the power supply, because what can happen is that the power supply might not be able to handle higher watts or higher load, and it can actually fry your GPU. But this is really rare, really rare to happen. But just to conclude, no, this process won't break your GPU. You can ease your mind. That won't happen, unless of course you have a power bomb. A time bomb instead of a power supply. So do not ever cheap out on power supplies. It's not advisable and it's not worth it. Now to the actual overclocking part, we're gonna use the Radeon software tool to basically the Radeon software overclocking tool to overclock the GPU, because we have a Radeon card. We can use other softwares like MS Afterburner, and there are some more from NZXT, I believe, and some others. But if we're using an AMD card, why not use the AMD software, since it is actually good? So the first thing that you actually have to do is go to your desktop, right click with the button of your mouse and go to AMD Software Adrenalin Edition. What you have to do is go here to the Performance tab. You have several tabs: the Gaming, Record and Stream, and the Performance one. What you want to do is go to the Performance one, click on it. Then you have three sub-tabs: the Metrics, Tuning and Settings, and you want to go to the Tuning sub-tab. Click on it. Firstly, you will be prompted with a message to accept the terms and so on. You can accept them, and then you'll have this menu with System, CPU and GPU. We can just put the system and CPU down. Now you have several tunings. You have the default, undervolt GPU, overclock GPU, overclock VRAM. Now these are what you use to do the automatic tuning, although automatic tuning is not nearly as good as a manual tuning. Firstly, because you can just do these each one at a time. So you can just undervolt your GPU or overclock your GPU or overclock your VRAM. While manually tuning, we can actually do the three at the same time. We can undervolt the GPU, we can overclock the GPU, and we can overclock the VRAM. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. And with this all said, what you want to do is go to the manual tuning and press custom. Bam! The custom mode will unlock these several sliders, GPU tuning, VRAM. All you have to do is enable all these sliders and then enable the advanced control sliders as well. Enable, and the advanced control on the fans is not required. At least I'm not using it. Then press apply here in the right top corner and bam. Now, in my opinion, the first thing that I want to do when overclocking and undervolting your card, or just undervolting or just overclocking, it doesn't really matter, is to go to the power tuning, go to the power limit slider and increase the power limit slider to the maximum that you can. Higher tier models tend to have a higher power limit, while lower tier models tend to have a lower power limit. Some models might go only up to 5%, some models might go up to 10%, others might go up to 15%, like the card that I have here, which is the ASRock Phantom Gaming. By the way, thanks ASRock for sending the card. As for the power consumption, you're seeing here 40 watts, but the idle power consumption is obviously not 40 watts. It is 40 watts now because we're recording, and since we are recording, the power consumption has to be higher since we're recording at 4K in the desktop. So 40 watts is normal, and that's why also the VRAM tuning clock speed is way higher than usual, because once again, we are recording. As for the fan tuning, I usually like to disable the 0 RPM options. For example, as you saw, the fan just clicked in a bit, just enabled a bit, and now disabled once again, because since we're recording, we're consuming 40 watts and the GPU gets hotter. And I don't really want the fans to be constantly turning on and off. And that's usually why I like to disable the 0 RPM mode. As soon as you disable the 0 RPM mode, you get the fan speed ramping up. As for the overclocking and undervolting of the GPU tuning, finally the main dish. In terms of minimum frequency and maximum frequency, in the previous drivers I actually advised people to use a minimum frequency just 100 MHz below the maximum frequency, especially when people were CPU bottlenecked. So if you are running lots of games where you are CPU bottlenecked and you, for example, see your GPU going to, let's say, 1700 MHz, 1500 MHz, in those scenarios, and you're kind of losing FPS due to that, in those scenarios where you are extremely CPU bottleneck, can go, for example, 2600 and 2700, because this minimum frequency slider at 2600 will ensure that in 90% of cases your GPU won't go below the 2600 minimum frequency, 2600 MHz. And in those scenarios where you are CPU bottlenecked, in some scenarios like CSGO or older Counter-Strike games, Valorant and so on, if you are CPU bottlenecked, this minimum frequency slider will help and you'll get a bit more FPS even when you're CPU bottlenecked. So it is a must in this scenario. Otherwise, if you're not having any issues with this, just leave the minimum frequency at 500 MHz, since it will give you the best results in terms of GPU bound scenarios. As for the maximum frequency, I already told you that in my advice it is 2700 MHz. You can go over 2700 MHz, no doubts. I can achieve 2800 MHz, I can achieve 2900 MHz, I can do it, but the ratio of power draw and performance won't be optimal. Let's say you gain 5% more performance, but you have, let's say, 50 watts more of power draw or 40 watts more of power draw. You have higher temperatures. It is just not worth it, at least for me. So in terms of voltage, well, the GPU starts with 1200 millivolts. And in this case, it depends a bit. It actually depends a bit because it depends of the game. Some games are heavier, some games are lighter. For example, in some games I can go as low as 1090 millivolts and there will be no issues, no blue screens, no black screens, no crashes, no stutters, it will work perfectly. For example, in Alan Wake 2 or in some other games, I can work with 1090 millivolts. But as soon as I go to other games, let's say Assassin's Creed Mirage, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, these games are very good to test the stability of the GPU overclock, by the way. In these games, I actually need to go way higher, and I need to go to 1150 millivolts. 1150 millivolts is perfect for all games. I tested all games at all resolutions in all scenarios. 1150 millivolts is the way to go. For some of you, it might not seem much because you may say, okay, you're just decreasing 50 millivolts out of the slider and 50 millivolts is not that much. True, but remember that we are overclocking, meaning that you're not only gonna have more performance, but you're gonna have decreased voltage as well. So decreased voltage means usually decreased power draw, decreased temperatures, and so on, so on, so on. Now remember that the voltage is just a slider. This voltage, having 1150 millivolts, doesn't mean that the GPU will perform or will actually push 1150 millivolts all the time. It means that the GPU in a certain maximum level will push 1150 millivolts. If it runs a lower frequency, let's say if it is running instead of 2700, if it is running at 2300 megahertz, it won't push 1150 millivolts. It will most likely push, let's say, 1.1 volts. If it runs at 1500 megahertz, it won't obviously push 1150 millivolts. It will push way less than that. So it works with power states. So each frequency has a base voltage, and the voltage slider works as a voltage offset. The lower the voltage slider, the lower the base voltage will be for a certain frequency. So while decreasing the voltage, you're still undervolting because you're actually decreasing the base voltage that we have for a certain frequency. In this case, you're decreasing the base voltage for 2700. You're also decreasing the base voltage for all other frequencies below that. So I advise you to start, for example, with this value, since it isn't much lower than usual. Start with 1150, test games like, once again, Assassin's Creed Valhalla if you have them, Assassin's Creed Mirage. If you have these games, test them because they are good for testing stability. If not, test the games that you play the most and test them, let's say, at least half an hour. If for half an hour they are perfectly stable, no stutters, no crashes to desktop, no crashes in terms of black screens, blue screens, if everything is perfect, then go down to 1140. If 1140 is perfect after half an hour, once again, go down to 1130. If 1130 is perfect, go down to 1120, so on, till you reach the minimum voltage that you can achieve stable. If you have, let's say, some artifacts going on in the monitor, if you have some crashes to the desktop, the game just randomly closing to the desktop, you need more voltage. But if not, you can keep decreasing the voltage till once again you reach the minimum voltage that you can achieve stable. The less voltage you apply here on the voltage slider, the less power draw will have, the less temperatures or the lower the temperatures will be. It is a win-win situation as long as it is stable. Once again, best games for testing the GPU stability, in my opinion, in this GPU are Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now going to the final step with the VRAM tuning. Well, the VRAM tuning on these cards comes 250 MHz above the 6700 XT ones. By the way, if you want to see the 6700 XT video, I have one as well. This one is slightly different because it is a higher binned version of the 6700 XT. We have the base stock of the 6700, which is which is 2000 MHz. In this scenario, the base is 2250 MHz, or in this case, 2248 MHz. In my case, I found that I can actually go to the maximum because the maximum is not much above it, and sadly, at least in this model, we can only overclock the VRAM by 50 MHz. So instead of the usual 2248, we have 2300 MHz because these 12 MHz that you see here are the offset. The VRAM on AMD GPUs usually has in between 12 and 14 MHz of offset. So if you want the round number of 2300 MHz, you need to go up to 2312 MHz or 2314 MHz. In this case, 2312 MHz is the maximum. They raised the maximum to this in order to achieve the round 2300 MHz. So sadly, we can only do 50 MHz of RAM overclocking in this scenario. In some other models like the 6950 XT that I have from ASRock, which is the Phantom model, I can go up to 2400 MHz or even slightly higher. Although you can mess a bit with the fast timings and default timings, the fast timings are the best option in terms of performance. Although take in consideration that they are highly, and I repeat, highly unstable, especially when we go up in terms of frequency. If you want to leave the frequency at stock, you can test the fast timings because they will most likely work without any issues. But when testing higher RAM frequencies, higher VRAM frequencies, and doing the fast timings at the same time, it might cause lots and lots of system instability. If the fast timings are stable, then let them be enabled, because you'll most likely have in between from 1 to 5% performance increase depending on the scenario and on the game especially. Some games will have, let's say, 1% or basically no performance gains. Some games will have up to 5%, depends on how the game engine works. Also, if you just want to undervolt this card, you can go, for example, to a maximum value of 2600 or a maximum value of 2500 and just decrease the voltage to the maximum that you can get until, once again, you reach the minimum voltage that you can get stable. And well, guys, that's basically it. So my settings: 2700 MHz maximum, 1150 millivolts, 2300 MHz on the VRAM. By the way, your VRAM won't be at maximum frequency always. It is at maximum frequency because we're recording, and since we're recording, it stays like this. But it should be at, let's say, a maximum of 900 MHz while full idling. And the power consumption the same, it should be at, let's say, 9, 11, 15 watts at most. If you want to load or if you want to download my profiles, the already done profiles, all you have to do is go to the link in the description, download the profiles, put it, for example, on the desktop, and after that just go here, import profile, select the desktop if you save the files on your desktop, and press them and load them. In my case, I tend to save them on the C disk, AMD folder, and I have here the profile. For example, I can say here, load the profile, select GPU only, proceed, bam, and it is done. As you can see, basically 5 millivolts more than I had. I didn't remember properly, and the rest, as you can see, it is all what I said. Take off the maximum fan speed, but it is all what I said. And well, guys, that's all for this video. Thank you very much. If you have any doubts, don't forget, leave your comment in the comment section, and as always, I'll answer as fast as I can. Any doubts, anything that you want to ask, just go comment section. Thank you very much for watching this video, and well, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching this video and for helping the channel, and once again, link for the profiles are in the description, but you don't need to download the profiles. You can just watch the video and tweak it by yourself, which generally is much better. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Cheers.
Somehow I knew the call was for me. Hello?
Alan Wake?
Yes.
Do you know who I am?
No? Who is this?
We'll get to that later. There are spies all over. Shadows.
A sense of deja vu washed over me. Had I had this conversation before?
Alan, listen to me carefully. Caldera Street Station, the subway. You need to go there. I'll call you again later. Make sure to pick up.
Do I know you? I know you from somewhere.
You've just forgotten again. We're in this together. Don't worry. I got